What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the Samsung Galaxy A26 5G. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the Samsung Galaxy A26 5G. Now this phone recently launched, and the device is actually offered for just $299. So it's definitely a very affordable smartphone from Samsung. And despite it actually being that affordable, we're actually getting a lot here for the price. So I'm looking forward to showing you all the major things to know about the A26 5G here in this video. Now the first thing I want to do is show you what all comes included in the box. So here's the box, and it is a slim box, and the reason for that is because there is no USB wall adapter included, which is a bit unfortunate. Now the first thing we have here is a SIM card removal tool. And then further into this packet, there's a few other items. Whoops, and they flew out here. Here's a quick start guide. And then we're also getting a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. And the maximum charging speed of this device is 25 watts. So keep in mind, if you want to actually recharge this phone at that full speed, you are going to have to use a 25 watt USB wall adapter paired up with this cable. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.7 inch display. Now this display is Super AMOLED, and it's also impressive that we are getting a refresh rate of 120 Hz. So that's a very fast and smooth refresh rate here with the device, and it's certainly very obvious when using the phone. You know, even though this is a budget device, it actually feels very premium, which is certainly a really good thing. Now in addition to that, the display here is 1080p, we are getting a PPI of 385, we're getting a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, and then finally we're getting an 86.7% screen to body ratio. So we do have pretty small bezels on the sides of the device, but the bottom bezel here is a bit thicker, so keep that in mind. Then up top here we do have a water drop notch for the front facing camera, and that front camera is 13 megapixels. Now I do wish we had a hole punch instead for the front camera, but I suppose it's a compromise that they did have to make here for this device to be just $299. But besides that, we are getting a very impressive display, and then with it being Super AMOLED, we're getting very good viewing angles as well. So certainly a nice thing to have here. Now internally here with the device, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage along with micro SD card expansion. So with this being a budget phone, having 128 gigabytes is really impressive. In fact, that's the base configuration of the flagship Pixel 9. So the fact that we're getting that here with a phone that's a fraction of that price with the A26 5G, having that 128 gigabytes really gives this phone additional value. And then of course, with micro SD card expansion, it is nice to have that option to add in a micro SD card to potentially free up some space here on the device. Now unfortunately, there is no wireless charging with the A26 5G, but the phone does have a side-mounted fingerprint sensor, so let's give that a try right now. And you can see it's very fast and responsive, and then there is also face unlock here with the device, so I do appreciate that we are getting multiple options. Now taking a look at the back of the phone, we have the camera module, and we are getting a triple camera setup. So there's a 50 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and then a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Then in addition to that, we're also getting portrait mode. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main rear camera right now. Now keep in mind that even though the main camera is 50 megapixels, by default it's actually set to 12 megapixels, so you can change that to 50 if you want photos in that full pixel count. However, keep in mind that for most people, you don't need to actually capture photos in 50 megapixels. It is a nice bonus feature, but as a result of this, the file sizes are going to be a lot larger on your images, so I'd really only use it in certain situations. But in addition to having the 50 megapixel mode, we also have the ultra wide camera, which is 0.5 here, and then with that we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. We can then also head over to the More tab and access the macro camera, and you probably saw there too, there's a lot of other options available as well. So with the macro camera, you can get very close up here and have things be in really good detail. So it's certainly a feature that is useful in certain situations. And then finally, going over to video here, the phone does take 4K video with the rear camera. However, the front-facing camera is 1080p. And then speaking of the front camera, flipping around here, there's me right there. There's the front camera. We do have an option for group selfies as well, so it crops out a little bit. So it is nice that even though this is meant to be a budget smartphone, we're still getting a lot of different options when it comes to the various camera abilities here on the device. Now with this phone, we're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM paired up with the Samsung Exynos 1380 processor. Now so far, things have been really good with this device as far as performance goes. For example, just setting up the phone, which some budget phones actually struggle with, That was a good experience. Things loaded up very quickly, and I was able to get going here with the device. And then when it comes to general scrolling around, this phone is very fast, very well optimized, and definitely a good part of that is because this phone does feature Samsung's One UI 7, which is the latest and greatest version of their software, and the other older A-series phones will be getting that update pretty soon. And then as I mentioned before, this phone does support 25-watt fast charging, but in addition to that, we are getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, which is certainly a great thing. And then also with this phone, we are getting NFC, so you can use it for Samsung Pay. So if you want to use the phone to tap and pay, that feature is here available for you. But let's take a closer look at the overall build of the device. Now the phone is made completely of plastic, which makes sense, especially in this price range. However, one thing I really don't like is the material on the back. I don't like how already, initially here, just after using the phone very briefly, it's picking up fingerprints, it's very glossy, you can see dust all around the camera here. I'm just not a big fan of glossy finishes on smartphones. I really wish it was some sort of matte finish or like a frosted finish, but I suppose if you're buying a phone in this segment, you really just want a good, reliable smartphone, and when it comes to things like the material in the back, you're probably going to be using a case with your device anyway, so I suppose that might not actually be that big of a deal. But definitely let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is the Samsung Galaxy A26 5G. I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for future content on the channel about this device, as I do have a lot planned.